Hello, my fellow chatterers and book lovers, and anyone else who's popped in because you're curious about what this is. You've got a bit lost. Welcome, everyone. I'm Chatty. This is my channel, Chatty the Mad Chatter. And I am going to be chatting to you today, introducing my new video series called Can I Read? And for 2025, it will be romance. So I'm going to be doing a series of 7 videos, and through editing the first episode, I realised actually I needed an introduction episode. So this is actually episode 1, the introduction episode. I will be outlining the video series, talking about my experience with reading romance so far, my book choices and subgenres for each reading session, and my scoring system to rate the romances I read. So I'm hoping to do 7 episodes over the year 2025. Obviously, this is the first one, the introduction, and then episodes 2 and 3 are going to be looking at 3 books that I will be reading for January/February. The first episode, I will go through what the books are that I'm reading and kind of take you through my thoughts on the first chapters and then my progression with them. The second episode, I will then give you my full thoughts on them as a whole. And then I have got a little charty thing that I'm putting together, ranking, to give me like a guideline to kind of rank the romance for each book. And then I'll be referring to those stats as I progress throughout the year. So episode 4 and 5, I'm hoping to do around June time, reading another 3 books. And then episode 6 and 7, around about October-y time. And I'll be reading another 3 books. I may end up doing episode 8 where I do like a stats thing of which was my favourite romance book, and after this dabbling year, do I think of myself as a romance reader? I used to read more romance as a teenager, and then as an adult I found a lot of books that had kind of romance in them or were a romance book weren't really working for me, so started to stop thinking of myself as someone who read romance. Recently, towards the end of 2024, I found 2 romance books that I absolutely adored. Both were contemporary. One was by Alexis Hall, and it was Paris Delacour is About to Crumble. I adored that book. I fell in love with Paris. He was an absolute sweetheart, even when there were moments when I'm like, oh my goodness, what are you actually saying? And it just felt really organic. It felt really real. I really enjoyed both of them as people, and I just absolutely felt for Paris in all of his dilemmas. And then you were just rooting for them to get together. The other was At Your Age, Eve Brown by Talia Hibbert. I adored Eve. I absolutely fell in love with Eve and just needed all the good things for her. And I really enjoyed the chemistry between her and Jacob. They were very different people, but I, again, understood where both of them individually were coming from, and I just found the whole thing delightful. So I'm like, oh, maybe I could read romance. And then I started to think back. I've always enjoyed Georgette Heyer, like mainly like the comedy of manners and the social comedy, but there are certain books as well where I adore both the characters and the wanting them to get together. Things like Cotillion, Venetia, I read again recently and already spoke about, Black Sheep, False Colours. I just really adored. So there are some where it's just more for the silly fun times, but there are some where I did generally enjoy like the romance side of it as well. However, I have not found a historical fiction that was not Georgette Heyer that I enjoyed. What my mother would refer to as bodice rippers, and it was a lot more smut and steam focused than it was necessarily on the characters, because like the way they developed them, it was just too ridiculous. It was just too ridiculous for me. I'm like, I really don't feel like that traumatized by this. I feel this is too dramatic and I can't take it seriously. Silly fun times, comedy, yes. Overly dramatic, no. I've discovered worked for me. I did hope that I would, having really loved the first Bridgerton season, I thought maybe Bridgerton would work for me. I read the first 2 Bridgerton books, I enjoyed the banter between Daphne and Duke What's-His-Face. But then when they actually got together and just how forced it kind of was, and then the over dramaticness of it, and then the problematicness of it, and I was like, I just can't take you guys seriously. I'm sorry, you've just lost it. Like, I'm here for the banter, I'm here for that kind of fun, but the rest of it, no. And although I enjoyed the croquet scene with Kate and Anthony, I just found I just couldn't cope with Anthony. I just couldn't cope with him at all. Kate I thought was great, but I got frustrated where I was like, you don't like this guy, stop turning into a puddle every time you see him, where's your backbone? So I couldn't cope with it. So fantasy, again, I have been surprised. I was very surprised with how much I enjoyed the romance side of Belladonna and Into Foxglove, and I was absolutely rooting for the couple, love the chemistry, love the banter, worked perfectly for me. I read This Vicious Grace because I got sent it in Fairy Loot, and I was reading it as a buddy read with Vidania and with Chloe, both the channels I will link, and I was shocked by how much I was invested in this romance. So there was enough of like a fantasy plot going on around it, and the reason for the complications in the romance really made sense because of the stuff that was happening in the fantasy plot. But I loved the banter, I loved the characters individually, and was rooting for them to get together, and was so surprised about how much I loved that. What I have not got on well with, there have been other books where I've enjoyed the book because I've enjoyed the fantasy side of it and not necessarily caring too much about the romance. It was very much a sure, whatever. Or some I'm just like, I actually can't stand either of you. So ones where I liked it but not so much the romance was Only a Monster by Vanessa Len, The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea by Axio. I did not get on at all with Violet Made of Thorns or One Dark Window, or Akatar or Akamath. I found them infuriating. So hit or miss, very hit or miss. Divine Rivals I did like, which is good because that is literally about romance. So I have carefully explored different premises, and I have chosen, I'm hoping to make 3 videos.
Future chatty. Well, as we know, it's now going to end up being 7, but doing 3 lots of reading sessions.
So in each of my videos I will be exploring fantasy romance, a historical romance, and a contemporary romance. And within that I'm looking at a sapphic romance, a heterosexual romance, and a male romance. So I feel like I've got a nice spread of things, and I do feel like I've definitely chosen ones where I feel the premise will be ticking my boxes. So I'm going into this hopeful, but we will find out together what I actually think of them. So I'm just having some tea because it's very important. It's nice and warm as well.
So, my scoring system. When I have read these romance books, I will be putting them through my romance rater. So this is a scoring system that I have set up. And I've got 3 categories relating to the romance, and then 1 which talks about the book genre. Each of these I am going to keep it nice and simple. If I think that aspect is amazing, I'll give it 3 points. If I think it's good, I'll give it 2 points. If I think it's just meh, like I don't really care, I'll give it 1 point. And if it's like, no, just no, it is 0 points. So the categories are, I have 3 character categories. And that is both of the love interests individually. So am I invested in them and their life? Do I want good things for them? So I'll score 1 and then I'll score the other. And then them as a couple. Am I rooting for them to get together? Then I have the more romance side of things. And that is it giving me the feels? What's my emotional reaction to the story? Am I enjoying the banter between the characters? What do I think of the spark, the chemistry between the two characters? And then I have another subcategory, and that is the healthy relationship. I will not be reading any dark romances. I will not be reading any kind of like thriller romances where it's a bit toxic. They will not work for me. I want healthy relationships. They make me really happy. So I will be looking at, do the couple complement each other? You know, have they got a nice yin-yang balance? Do they work well together as a team? Do they complete each other? I'll be looking at the communication. Communication is so key to a healthy relationship. I like to see good communication, please. And is there a respect between the two characters? Do they appreciate what each other brings to the table and themselves as people? And then, as I said, my final one is just looking at the rest of the book. So for a contemporary romance, I'm looking at, does it give me lots of silly fun times? For the historical romance, I am looking at, does it give me a good sense of the historical period it is set in? And for the fantasy romance, does it give me a wonderful fantasy world within the setting? So I'll go through each of those when I've read them and rate them, and then I'll be able to compare them and see what I think. So I'm very excited to actually really get going on this project. I have got going. I have done my first set of books, but I felt like I had so much to kind of say that I needed an introduction video. So the next video that you will get from this project is going to be the good one, where I'm actually telling you about the 3 books that I read in January and February, and letting you know my progress with them and my book vlog of how my reading went. Thank you so much. Please let me know if you're interested in this project. Let me know if you've got any guesses about what some of the books might be that I pick up, or if you have any recommendations. I'm pretty solidly set on all the books I've picked up for this project, but I could be persuaded to change my mind. Happy reading, everyone.